Alrighty, welcome back. I have heaters on in the background, so if you can hear them and it bugs you, I'm sorry. Let's talk about lines and why, especially when we're doing eyes, why we should avoid strokes when we're drawing our eyes. First off, just created the Bezier tool, hit the B key, and I am going to do a very basic eye here. I'm going to use nothing but strokes this first time around. It's going to be a very quick discussion before we get to the eye. And I can do a lot of the stuff that I can do by using strokes. This is a horrible eye. But first thing I want to do is jump over here to the stroke style and thicken it up to make it look more like the manga or the American cartoons or whatever. And I can actually see where it's crossing over a little bit there. Now, there's only one point here, but it is doing a ripple thing here on my stroke. So I come over here and I want to try some of the other properties to try to fix it. There's no way I'm going to get this to look anything like an ink or pencil drawing with a stroke. But now, let's get rid of that. And let's do a quick and simple ink-like drawing. Create my shape. It's going to be the bottom of the eye. Totally get rid of that stroke. I have so much more control now over the whole thing. Now I could do something like this, but it's not the kind of eye I was thinking about. My eye lines disappear. In this case, I would probably do something. I would probably do a similar shape on top. I would leave that end open. I might even leave this end open. Set the fill, hold down the shift key, and hit the white box with a red X in it that gets rid of the stroke. And immediately I start to see an eye forming. Not much harder than working with a stroke, but much more free, much more easier to work with. And I may do an ellipse. In these eyes tutorials, I was using an ellipse mainly. But I can also start off by just continuing the same process. All the way around. And since it thins out, it does provide a more ink-like pen, more cartoon, and also a little bit more realistic look to our eye. I'm not editing it as nearly as much as if I was working with a stroke. I cannot get this easily. There's a few tools over here, the Inkscape, an Illustrator, and a CorelDRAW have all tried to create that provides what appears to be a stroke that does the same thing as what I'm doing free-handed here. But if I go over here and I grab the colography tool. Now I go to notes on that. It's doing exactly what I'm doing, but it's creating a lot more points. So literally built into Inkscape, if you use the colograph tool, you will notice that what it is doing is a no stroke with a fill shape. It's not creating a different kind of stroke. And I can do, if I just practice at this a little bit, I can get good at my style. In this case, this is my style. And that is to have the narrow ends thicken out to try to imitate an ink drawing. And now I start doing this kind of stuff. Actually, I want that red. Really red. Now it looks like this actually looks like it has a stroke on it. The weird thing about that is it doesn't. Of course, it is a fill. It's a fill that I'm going to pop a gradient in here. I can do that a little bit red also. That looks like a bevel die. Kind of funny. But simply practicing with this, it doesn't take long. We're about to get to the eye tutorial that I promised, or we're about to do the eye that I posted last week, or actually yesterday. I said last week. Yesterday, one of the eyes. This is just much, much smoother, much, much better, much easier to work with. If you use the ColorGraph tool, ColorGraphic pen, you're going to create just a whole bunch more points. And let's see here. I know you can increase the width up here, but see, it's doing that rounded in thing. I'm not saying don't use this. I just am saying that don't anticipate it to be. That looks more like an ink stroke, but if you look at all the, well, it didn't do quite that bad. So that's basically the preview to our class here, to our tutorial. Let's get over to that, but really working with the shapes, working with the Bezier line, or working with the curved line, you can get a much more nicer looking shape by getting rid of the stroke. Since I have the Windows Store version of Inkscape, I cannot set my stuff by default to turn off the stroke, or I would. But you can if you have the downloaded version of Inkscape. I know you can find it online where you can just have the stroke by default turned off and have the fill turned on, which is really what you want. And I mean, I'm expecting on this right now, I'm expecting a nose. If I start getting a little bit more fancy here, not really do a whole nose here, but do just a very thin line there. And I start seeing a face. That nose is way too short, I know. But, well, it's not way too short, but it is a little bit too short. But we start to see a more realistic face or a more cartoonish face. Let's jump over into the tutorial. Alrighty, the first thing is I have a new document. Let's go ahead and set it up. Let's move everything over to pixels because our screen is in pixels, not centimeters or inches. It's the most stupid war to bring into art. So I want this eye to be a little bit open. I know a lot of the time we see the cartoons or the manga or whatever, and we will see closed eye. and it's not, doesn't look good as having a little bit of an open eye. Because if the inside of the eye is a little bit open, it's fading into the nose, although the nose may not be there at all. Let's create the actual iris. Turn off the stroke. Give it a color. Make it fully optic. Opaque. Optic, of course, it's optic. Opaque. So I've copied that in. Let's go ahead and make them the background a little bit darker. A little bit of transparency. Now we're just going to keep on duplicating in until we get a nice gradient field, a much better gradient that follows our path. So if we do a gradient this way by layering multiple parts on top of each other with a little bit of transparency, what happens is if we edit all of those parts at the same time, the nodes, and give them a slightly offset shape, the gradient will follow that offset shape. Whereas if we were using a radial gradient or a linear gradient, it would be that they would not follow the path of the outer line. They wouldn't follow the shape. They would still be, the radial would still be perfectly round or oval or elliptical, egg shape. You can make them egg shape, but they wouldn't be imperfect. I'm just layering, putting layers, sending them to the back behind the pupil, trying to get a darkened area around the pupil that is the color of the eye, of the iris. Let's group all that together. I always have a tendency of making the iris too small the first few times I do it. I do want an eyebrow now. This is a little bit, this is really 1950-ish. So, is a female. She does have a pink eyebrow. The eye does look a little bit surprised. Now something they were actually going for in the 1950s was that double eyebrow look. Was having a highlight on their eyebrows, and they would do this with makeup. It was an in thing for a little bit, I think actually in the 40s. So I'm kind of going for that look. We have the eyebrow. Now we have an area of whatever color we made the eyebrow. We have an area up above it that's kind of, I don't know why they did it. Ladies, maybe you can tell me why. And I hate it when Inkscape starts doing this, where it keeps on selecting. Once you group something, you're always supposed to select the group, but it's just refusing to select the group. So you just have to give up and select all the items under the group manually. But you'll see that look in a bunch of the older retro cartoons. And let's do some highlights. And I actually want them to be very much the same color as our eyebrow. You don't always have to make them white. Now I want a shadow. I need to send this to the back behind the outline of the eye, but I want it, of course, in front of the eye itself. I want it to be shadowed over the eye. And we're going to majorly transparent that. Lower the alpha. Accidentally deleted it. Instead of pushing page down, I pushed the delete key. When you push page down and it doesn't move something to the background, you just need to go over to the layer tab and do it manually. Inkscape tries, but I mean, come on, it's a free program. I've actually bought it in the Microsoft Store just so I could donate. I mean, it tells you that you're donating, but you can totally get it for free online. If you go to the Microsoft Store, you can easily donate. Now you can't. This is just a double layering technique. And that first thing that you saw me do, that was with the inner eye, going to the inner eye, I started thinking that was a little bit too gaudy. All right, that's it. If you got something out of this, like and subscribe. I have 5 eyes totally designed. I've already put 2 in the shorts. I'll have the other one. I should have the other eye out, that tutorial out tomorrow. So if you got something out of this, like and subscribe. All glory be to God, and I will see you in the next video.